Hey guys, this is Megesh Shenoy, and for today's use case, we will go through how we can transfer files between two Salesforce orgs using Mulesoft Composer. So, before moving that, let's have an introduction. As said, I am Megesh Shenoy. I have 2 years of experience in this Salesforce ecosystem, and also I am a Mulesoft and a Salesforce certified developer, and also a Mulesoft mentor. So with that, uh, before moving down to Mulesoft Composer, let's first understand how files are stored in Salesforce. So if we can see, we have four different types of objects available over here. One is the standard and the custom object which you use to store your business data. The another one is a content version, content document, and content document link. Moving down to the first one, you all know we use standard and custom object for our business use cases. Business for our businesses to store data, valid data. Then we have a content version. In content version, basically we will store your files, your data, and all. And then in content document is the I would say a parent object, okay, which would point me towards the latest file version, right? So basically, if I have if I up today I upload a file, tomorrow I have a revised file, right? So I will create a new version of the file, and this content document will point me to the new version of the file. And content document link is the one who plays a major role as well, which would link my standard or custom object record with my file which is stored in content version using content document object record. So this is basically how our files are stored in Salesforce. Again, I would repeat that content version would uh, file, store my file, not only the latest version but all the previous versions of the files as well. Now, content document will point me towards the latest version of the file, and content document link is used to link my file with my object records. So this is another chart I would rather say to let you visualize how this is stored. So if we can see that I have two versions of a file, content version ID is equal to 1.0 and content version ID is equal to 2.0. Now if we can see our actual files or the images are stored into my content version object, and my content document, if we can see that it points to the latest version, that is it is 2.0. So it points me to the latest version of the file. And then content document link is used to link my object records with my content document record, which would then point me towards the latest version of the file. So this is how we store the data, our files in Salesforce. So as said, content version would store all the files with its older and also the latest version. And content document is the parent object which would point me to the latest version of the file. It also has a field which is called as latest published version ID field. That is, it will store the content version record ID, which would contain the files that I had uploaded, right? So this is about content document. Now content document link, as said, has it is used to link my files with my object records, and it consists of two fields. First one, it is linked entity type which it will contain your S object record ID. That means account, contact, or any other custom object or standard object you are using. It will now link it with that. Your record ID would be stored over here. And the second one is content document ID. It will store your content document. If we can see over here, it will store the content document ID in this field. So this is how we store files in Salesforce and references and refer them in my CRM. So I have built an implementation of transferring these files between two Salesforce orgs using Mulesoft Composer. Now let's get started with our very interesting use case which I have built. So currently I have used a trigger which would automatically trigger my or execute my MuleSoft Composer flow for every 15 minutes. I have just built this for demo purposes. So if why, because if I click on test, I won't have to wait for 15 minutes. It would execute instantaneously, right? And for that I have kept it as a trigger. Second thing, now for the first action what I am doing, I am getting my account data for this scenario. I want that these two are the accounts, if I can see, Burlington Textiles Corp of America and also Edge Communications. Now my organization has identified that these two accounts belong to the very same customer in different names, right? So for that, whatever files, if I can see over here, if I go to related list and I can see there are two files available under this account. One is MuleSoft Automation Made Easy and another one is File 1 Composer Demo, and both are CSV files. And the destination org is this org, okay? And in this org we can see there is an account Edge Communications, and we already identified that that both the account are same, and we can see there are no files available currently. So with that, if I can show you that there is an already an account ID field over here, and this account ID field would contain the ID of this account, okay, in this Salesforce instance. As said, these two are the very two different Salesforce instance, where this is the source system and this is the target system. uh, so with that, currently I have named a MuleSoft Integration DevOps. This is the source system. In that, I am currently using an ID field, okay, to to just trigger to work my to let my MuleSoft Composer flow just automate this particular transfer the files from this account to this account, particularly for this demo. But over here, depending upon your business use case, you can enter you can enter your conditions over here, and then let your MuleSoft Composer flow to trigger. So right now, whenever we get records in my MuleSoft Composer, it does not return me one record. Even if I'm using an ID, it would still return me a list of account records or S object records which you want, right? So because of that, I have to use a for each loop. So I have also dragged a for each loop in here. So in my for each loop, I am iterating over a list of account. Now, what do I do? Because I want to understand that whichever files are currently present under my account Burlington Textile Corps of America. So currently there are two files attached over here. So, as said that content document link is content document link, if you can see in this PPT, is used to link this file. So we will first get the content. We will first query the content document link. So we'll get back to our MuleSoft Composer flow. So over here, if we can see that there is a field called linked entity ID. Over here, I am entering my account ID. Now, because there are only two files present over here, it would return me two records. This two records of S object content document link. Now, what do I do? I again reiterate over this result set, that is list of content document link. So I am over here right now. Now I want to access this the latest one, right? The latest file data. So for this, I need to now again access. Now my content document link would contain the content document ID, right? So if I get back to my MuleSoft Composer flow, I can see I am now iterating over my list of content document link. Now I have again dragged a get records in Salesforce element, okay? A Salesforce connector with action as get records and object type as content document. Over here, if we can see that I have set another condition where content document ID equals the content document ID over here. From where? From the content document link. Okay, so if you can see over here, I got the now I'm iterating over this a list of content document link, and in that I have content document ID. So in each iteration I would be accessing the value of content document and I'm getting the records. Okay, I'm querying the records. Once I also query the record, as said, my get record element would return me a list of object records. So again I would reiterate over that content document. Okay, now my content document would, it would point me towards the latest version of the file. So in this case, again it would so if we can see over here, okay, I am iterating over the list of content document. Now my action is set to get records. Object type is content version because my actual files are stored in content version object over here. And uh, so if you can see, my content version ID equals latest published content version ID, latest published version ID over here. So this is a field which is already present on my content document object. Okay, and it will point me towards the latest version of my file, that is in content version object record. My content version object record would store all the previous versions of the or the older versions of the file, as well as the new versions of the file. And my content document object would basically point me towards the only the latest version of the file and not to the previous older versions of the file. So if we can see over here, my content version our ID equals latest published. So if you can see over here, okay. So let me again re-enter it for you. Latest published version ID over here. Okay. Now I'll click on apply again. So this is how I am querying my content version. Now we actually have gotten to a scenario where I can now access my data. Okay, I'm querying it over here, and now there is a specific action in Salesforce connected called download file, and I set the object type as content version and then the file ID as the latest published version ID, which I retrieved it from my list of content document which had this ID over here. If you can see, my content document object has latest published version ID field, which consists of, it stores the content version record ID, which has the latest version of the file. Yep. So I downloaded this file into my Mulesoft Composer flow. Now, how to, we have completed 50% of a scenario where we have successfully downloaded the file. Now I have to upload it to my Salesforce destination org, right? How can I do that? So for that, if I can minimize this, so for that, now what shall I do? I would now be uploading the data where, again, as I said, content version would store your files data, right? So same thing over here. There is another action called upload file and the object type is content version. Now if we can see over here, content document ID has been set to asterisk mark. It has asterisk mark. That means it is required. How you can bypass it is basically that you have to click over here and have a backspace pressed. Okay, have a empty string, have a string over there, the backspace or a white space. Why? Because when we upload or create a record of content version, or you want to upload a file into Salesforce, okay, so Salesforce would automatically create a content document record automatically, as I said. So you don't have to do it over here. So even if I keep it as, I enter a blank string over here, then also it would treat it as a valid input and create and upload a file. That means that create a record of no, in my s object content version over here. So path of the client, I have set it as what it is in my source org over here, path of the client. Then title I have given it is same as what it is in my source org, and additionally I have entered the name as demo for us to identify that yes, this file was transferred from this Mulesoft Composer flow from my source org to my destination org, and over here as I can see the file content. This is the same file content which I downloaded into this step over here. If you can see 9 over here, and I can see 9 content, that means this is the same content which I downloaded previously. Now if you can see over here, now I get the records. Okay, once my as said, once I upload the data or upload my file into Salesforce, it basically in the backend creates a content version record over there, right? Content version object record, which would now store my file. Now I need the content version record, right? So if you can see over here, I have successfully created my content version object record, which consists of my actual files. Now I have to link it with my object also, right? In this case it is account. So as said, when we upload a file or create, upload a file or into my Salesforce, or automatically content document record would be created, and that content document record would store my content version record id of this file. You don't have to do anything, you just have to upload the file, and Salesforce will automatically create a content document record for you, which consists of my content version record id. Now what I have to do, I have to basically link this to my content document id with my account id in this case, or for your use case, your standard or the custom object record id over here. So right now if you can see, I am basically getting the so once I uploaded data, okay, upload my file in Salesforce, it would return me a content version record id. Now basically what I do, I want to access the content document record id right on it. So I will basically it I query into my Salesforce or for this content document id over here. So once I get the record in this step, I can see I am iterating over a list of content version. Okay, so basically my content version object would also store my content document id. Okay, and because of that I queried my content version object. Now it basically it returned me a list of content version object records. I will again iterate over that list of content version record, and in that what shall I do? Now I need to just create a link between those my files and my record, right? And how can I do? My content document link is basically meant for that. The linked entity id or entity type would now store the my Salesforce standard or custom object record where you wanted the record id, and then the content document id over here. So in this case I have given the same thing, like the content document id, which is of the newly created or newly uploaded file into my Salesforce org, and the last thing, it is linked entity id over here, which is my record id of my Salesforce standard or custom object depending upon your use case. For my use case, this stores account id. I hope you are all clear with how this is working. So if I can show you the high level perspective, so basically it's like having a for each loop inside a for each loop in order to access the data, right? As I said, we are using a get records element, and get record element would basically return me a list of records, and in order to access each of the data I need to iterate over those lists, right? And for that reason I am using for each loop. So if you can see, there is starting from here, there is like for each inside for each inside for each and inside for each. So it's like basically you can see these many for each I have used, but this is the way we can transfer our files from one Salesforce org to another Salesforce org, transfer or send my files, right? So I'll right now I'll click on test. As said that, so let me again revalidate it. Yep. So as said that this is a trigger, and because of trigger I don't have to, and I have set it as every 15 minutes, but because this is a trigger and while testing I don't have to necessarily wait for 15 minutes. And my Mulesoft Composer flow would itself I would rather say trigger it itself will trigger rather than waiting for any event to happen. Right now, see, it didn't I did not have to do anything because it's a trigger and I clicked on test, it itself get triggered. So let's wait for few seconds, like how much for my files to get transferred to my destination Salesforce instance. So I will again show that there is no files present in over here, right? And there are two files present, and this is my source system, so Salesforce org, and I can see there are two files present over here. So right now, let's wait how this works. I hope, fingers crossed. So if I can see the test has executed successfully and each and every action has, without any error, we have, this composer flow has successfully executed. Now let's see if it really has transferred the files or not. So over here, let me refresh the page. So if I can see that yes, two files have been successfully transferred from my source org, which is this, to my destination org, which is this. So I can see there is also demo word appended in front of it, which we can now know that yes, my composer flow successfully ran. I hope you learned something new from this session, and thank you for I really appreciate it for watching the video. Thank you.